Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This video is a tad bit late. I wanted to release this the day of the week 2 patch, and I decided to not release it as that patch was delayed by a day, and I kind of just wanted to sit on my thoughts. You know, how do I really feel about the game without the whole, oh, it's a beta cope phrase that looms over us. I really don't like giving games, or developers for that matter, a pass on the pretext that, you know, it's just a beta, so they are just completely excommunicated from conversation or critique. I can't stand that. I really appreciate the love on the last few uploads. I've been getting more and more into the Warhammer scene, and the community has been really welcoming so far. We're going to be releasing our Zealot leveling guide on the game's launch, so be sure to check back on the channel if you're going to be running a Preacher come launch day. And I'm just going to talk about how I feel about the game as a veteran quote-unquote, Vermintide 2 player. What do I like about it? What do I not like about it? And overall, do I recommend this game? Now, obviously, these are my thoughts and opinions solely based on my time spent in these horde shooters, Tide games, whatever you want to call them. That's also not to mention that this is not scripted, and it's just completely off the cuff. This is just to keep honest with myself and what I'm thinking in the moment. So first things first, what do I like about Darktide so far? Well, number one, the movement. I don't know why I'm so excited about these modern features and modern FPSs, but you can vault, you can sprint, you can slide. Coming from Vermintide 2, you didn't have any of that. You know, so jumping over a wall that you definitely should be able to jump over, and then you weren't able to do that. I was like, okay. But coming to Darktide, you can do those sort of things. You can vault over the boxes, you can vault over, you know, knee-high things. Really good. Also, being able to sprint and slide, the caveat being is that you do have a stamina bar, that way you're not just, you know, blasting through levels. If you don't have any stamina, it's going to hurt you once you come across an ambush, or, you know, horde decides to rear its head and you don't have any stamina to actually deal with it. So it keeps it relatively balanced in that respect. That's also to mention the combat. Number 2, you have really fun combat modifiers on your weapons like Strike Down, Assassin, Relentless, Vanguard. These all culminate into basically your build. And I really like that in the build crafting aspect. Does your build cover AoE? Does your build cover single target? Are you able to 10 with the mid-range? Are you able to 10 with the long-range? Just stuff like this that really makes it, you know, all come together. And I'm really excited to see what they're going to push this through. Like, you know, once we get more weapons, stuff like that. Will they come with any other modifiers? Are we able to do anything else with these weapons? What are the special actions going to be later on once we get more weapons through either DLC or whatever happens? And also the combat's just fluid. Which I really enjoyed. I think compared to Vermintide 2, which was also a really fluid, you know, melee experience, like they kind of definitely reined that in. I think that they just had that formula going for them. So I'm glad that they didn't mix it up too much with the whole, well, we're more interested in the range combat this go around. It's like, no, the melee combat is still there. It really feels like a one-to-one experience. You have to know when to balance your melee versus going ranged and vice versa. And that's also to say the weapon variety in the game is just huge right now. Even during the beta, we didn't even have all of the weapons that were out yet. And the weapon variety in the game as we had it was just huge. You had the classic bolter. Everybody was looming over this bolter like, oh my god, it sounds so good. They really cared about the source material in that regard. You got your power swords, you got your thunder hammer, you got chain swords. Everything came in pretty right with that regard, and we're still hoping for, actually not hoping, we're going to be seeing new weapons on tomorrow's release. So it's going to be fun to see everything that is going to be out for the sandbox. It's going to be really cool to see what people build out of these weapons. Some weapons definitely have a place. Some weapons, they're just there for leveling fodder. You kind of just pick it up and then you move on. Number 3, the soundtrack. The soundtrack was composed by legendary composer Jesper Kyd. For those of you that don't know, Jesper Kyd was the mind behind every Assassin's Creed, to the early Hitman trilogy, to the Borderlands trilogy, to Kane and Lynch. Some of you don't even remember what Kane and Lynch is, or don't even know what it is. Just to let you know, Jesper Kyd carried that game. And then you had Vermintide 1 and 2. So I was really surprised when they had got him back for Darktide. I thought they went with another composer entirely, but no, they got Jesper Kyd back. Jesper Kyd is so legendary in the industry, and for him to be a part, you know, of just this little indie game, I shouldn't say little, really huge. Warhammer. It was really cool to see him come back for this. The soundtrack is just really hard thumping, especially when you need it to be. Like the horde sections where you're either in an ambush or the horde is actually, you know, racing on you. You got the boss battles themselves. The boss battle, that theme is just really good. For those of you that haven't really listened to it or have been meaning to, look up Disposal Unit. I would play it here, but I don't want the Wrath of God on me. Go listen to it, Disposal Unit. Really fun track, especially when it actually kicks in with the Imperial mix. Really good stuff. And you also have the like the defense / the objective sections of the OST that's like really good. I think that this was like a really solid score. So far, towards the end of the year, this has been my favorite soundtrack to listen to out of any video game that's come out this year. So it's going to be really good. And that's not to mention that you also get the OST for free if you pre-ordered the Imperial edition of the game. I was ready to just go buy it, but you actually get the soundtrack for free. So, huge. Good stuff. Number 4. I already touched on this a little bit earlier, but the visuals. You have the art design. You know, even though you're in this like desolate hive city with all of these prefab metal structures, you have these backgrounds, you have the enemies. You can tell that Fat Shark just really cared about the source material in that respect. Even the, and again, bringing up the weapons, you're able to interactively inspect the weapons, unlike other first-person shooters where you kind of just bring up the weapon and you kind of just look at it. In Darktide, you can bring up the weapon and like twist it around and really look at, you know, all the bits and pieces that are going into the weapon. That's really cool. I wish more games really did that, and, you know, coming from Vermintide 2, where, again, all you did was just bring up the weapon and kind of look at it. This system really blows the game out of the water, especially when it just comes to the whole immersion aspect. And I think lastly to just touch on is that I really like Fat Shark themselves. I think that they were kind of the right entity to be in this position where they're the ones that are just kind of making this game. I'm going to give a special shout out to Hedge, who's one of the community managers. He's been on top of it as far as just community sentiment. You know, he's been reading through the feedback. He's been responding where it counts. He's really been trying to quell some suspicions here and there. And he's just been answering questions, which is really important during this beta phase where it's like, all right, hey, are we going to see this and that and the other thing? And he's really been on top of it. So huge shout outs to him. Huge shout outs to the rest of the dev team on Fat Shark because they've really made this game come together. I was really worried about this game coming from, you know, the beginnings of Vermintide 2 to seeing Winds of Change and then all of that. A lot of people really didn't like the opening to that expansion, but then it started getting better over time, and then now here we are. So really looking forward to what Fat Shark is going to do with the rest of Darktide, especially now that, you know, they're trying to make Atoma Prime this kind of canonical place where it actually has a place within the Warhammer, you know, war set. So I think that's going to be really cool to see where this journey goes. So here's the part of the video that made me not post this. And you know, don't get me wrong, I think Darktide is a great game. There are some aspects that have me a little worried here and there. There's some things in particular that really have me scratching my head as well. We'll get to that in a moment. But I do want to touch on just like the lesser things. Like the, well, I wouldn't say lesser, but let's rephrase that. This has me worried. First thing, clarity. There are things that I can't really wrap my head around. You know, there are things that just don't make sense as far as like the UI to the localization. This is going to be your descriptions of certain things. Even for those of you that play with subtitles, you know, some subtitles don't match with what's happening. That's minor. Yeah, it's nitpicky, sure, but when you have a fan base, you know, like Warhammer, this is like making a Halo game. You got to do right. And, you know, there are some areas where it's just like, okay, the character didn't say this, but the subtitles are telling me that they're saying this, but okay. Descriptions, again, really important thing. Some of you might consider this minute. To me, it's very important, especially for build crafting. You know, you look at a weapon and you see that the modifier had rolled strike down. Strike Down's a fun modifier. It's single target base. It's going to come with some armor piercing at the very least. So you're going to be breaking through that armor. For people that are just getting into a Tide game, they're going to look at the Strike Down modifier and go, cool. They're going to take that weapon out into the wild. They're going to be like, I feel like this axe should be able to cleave, or whatever weapon I'm using that has Strike Down. I feel like this should be able to cleave. I feel like being able to just look this up outside of the game, that's kind of a problem. I know that there are a lot of community members that are posting guides. You know, us ourselves, we're also going to be posting guides. We're going to be talking about these modifiers coming up later in the week. But, you know, for the most part, you should be able to hover over this icon in-game. It tells you what Strike Down does, what it's capable of, what its weaknesses are. Like, hey, it doesn't have any AoE, so don't even try it. Really good at just these armor-piercing strikes, so take it for that. And then, you know, you have something like Relentless. You look at Relentless as a new player coming into this game and go, cool. Take it out, and then realize, I think that this should be hurting this particular enemy a lot more than it does. And again, it just goes back to, you should be able to hover over this icon. It tells you what it does. And, you know, we had that whole meme before the open beta actually launched, or open beta, before the closed beta actually launched, with the whole bar system, where you're looking at your weapon stats and it's just a bunch of bars everywhere. You could have a similar weapon that rolled more damage, at least on the bar, have a second weapon, identical, that rolled less damage, and somehow the one weapon that rolled less damage is doing more damage than the one that rolled more damage. So it's just stuff like this. It's really head scratching. I know that they're working on this, and I know that the Sandbox team behind this whole bar system had a whole plan behind it. And I think Hedge, week 1 of the beta, I believe, was explaining, you know, things around the bar system, why we even have it, what was it meant to do, stuff like that. But it's just it to the untrained, it's not really readable. We can't really get too much information out of it other than this bar says it does more damage, so I guess I have to believe it, but that's until we get this weapon that is identical to this weapon, and for some reason this is doing more damage than the one that had more damage, quote unquote, on it. So it's just stuff like that. We also have the localization of just like the traits or the challenge system, otherwise known as penances. I feel like some of these could be explained a lot better. Some of these penances, by the way, they are just absolutely god-awful. Without really bashing the devs, but you have a penance from the Psyker. I'm going to use the Psyker a lot in this example, but the Psyker has a penance where you are meant to run into 3 enemies while you are about to explode and kill these 3 enemies with your Perils of the Warp, which is the effect that happens when you let your peril get to 100. You have yet to quell it, and you're gonna die because you let it get up to 100. This penance rewards the character for griefing a run, and I don't think this happened in Vermintide. I think the penance, or sorry, the challenges, which were known as Octree's challenges, I think those were done a lot better. These challenges inside of Vermintide 2, they added more longevity to the game because you were able to you know, do set amount of challenges that the game had set aside for you, like complete every X assignment on this level, and you'll get a new weapon for, let's say, Sienna. So you beat every mission in this expansion on said difficulty, you'll get this weapon. I think that was fine. I think that was okay. Telling the player to run into enemies, die, literally grief the run on a set difficulty, I think that's a problem. The Psyker has another penance where you are meant to single-handedly do all of the damage to a boss that runs into the level. So one of the monstrosities, either the Nurgle, the Beast of Nurgle, or the Plague Ogre. You are meant to do 100% of the damage through Brain Blast, and you can't have any outside help. All of the damage must be done through Brain Blast, and it can only be done on a set difficulty, between Malice and higher. I have yet to do this challenge because it's, one, it's just asinine, but two, it's hard to get, especially in a public lobby, which is where I'm mainly playing, where all of us are playing. It was hard to get this challenge done because you're not going to convince, and if you even do that, it's going to be hard from there. But it's hard to convince 3 other people, hey, other 3 people I haven't met, is it cool that you guys just let me do this challenge here? I have to do 100% of the damage. It won't take too long, quote unquote. Are you guys going to be okay while I do that for my item that you guys don't get anything out of? Are you guys going to be okay with that? You know, we're not even guaranteeing the run completion here, but are you guys okay with me just, you know, stacking the run so I can do this particular objective? Are you guys cool with that? I think that's a little crazy. I like the idea of penances, and I'm just going to say that. I like the idea of penances. Like I said, from Vermintide 2, the Ockreach challenge system was a really cool system to get a little more longevity out of the game. But coming to Darktide itself, I feel like they just kind of went haywire with some of these challenges, where they just made them either a little too difficult, or again, they're rewarding certain play styles for either bad play or, you know, literally griefing a run for cosmetics. So I hopefully that gets adjusted somewhere along the line, and I'm okay with them adjusting some of these, you know, challenges. Some of these challenges that I've gotten where I felt like, man, I hope that they change this later. I have this cosmetic already, but I hope they change this. Once again, the Psyker has another challenge where you have to push people off the edge within 2 seconds. You have to push 20 people off the edge within 2 seconds. That sounds easy on paper. There are not many maps to do this on. Some maps, you can kind of get away with it, depends. Other times it's just kind of annoying when you see a Psyker that it just randomly springs this up on you. Hey guys, can we stay in this particular area real quick so I can do this challenge? Is that going to be cool with everybody? It's just kind of silly, because this sort of thing I never really saw inside of Vermintide 2, especially because you could play, you know, on private, and, you know, if you had to do a challenge, and you just go through a private lobby and just kind of, you know, bang out the challenge. So that right there, I hope something's got to give in that regard. It was also to the point, I was seeing people actively quitting matches because they failed to achieve whatever, you know, challenge they were going for. For instance, the Veteran has a challenge where you cannot take a single hit of melee damage for the entire run. And I've seen some Veteran players shout on their mic, like, oh damn it, I was so close to getting this, and then they just quit because they didn't get it. And it's like, well, okay. So that drastically reduces everybody else's experience, because now you're relegated to having a bot teammate, which they become a liability, especially on these harder difficulties. The bots are completely another issue. I know for the most part, especially if folks in my crew aren't on, I'm going to be playing solo, which I have done inside of Vermintide 2. For most of my play experience, it was solo, until I, you know, hit certain power creeps, and I was like, you know what, let's go into a pub. We didn't really hear too much on the bots' viability, especially when we're talking about the endgame difficulties. Inside of Vermintide 2, we needed a mod in order for these bots to actually become a threat inside of, you know, Legend. You know, to be able to tell them, hey, maybe you shouldn't be trying to pick up a res if there are a bunch of enemies around. Hey, maybe you shouldn't try to engage the boss unless the boss is actually engaging you. There are just certain things where I'm like, man, I wish the bots were just better. And I know for a lot of people, you know, I know for a lot of people that there are a lot of purists out there that are like, oh, well, the bots can't be too good because it's going to ruin the whole, you know, social aspect of the game. Why would you play with other people if the bots are literally just as good as any other player? That can't be fun. You'd be surprised. And you know, I get it. I understand, but it just irks me that, you know, when it comes to being a liability in a game versus their viability, they need to be able to hold their weight in some respect when it comes to these higher difficulties. I could not take any bot squad into a level 4 to 5 difficulty because they would just die immediately. Another thing that really irks me is that you can't change the bots, so you're just going to go in there with 3, veterans. I hope this changes with tomorrow's, full launch. I hope that you just get to customize a bot team like you could inside of Vermintide. It was cool to be able to have, a set team of whatever specialization that you wanted and just kind of take them out. Hopefully they didn't do away with that feature. Hopefully they talk about something with the bots. I'm just hoping that they'll be better come tomorrow. These were kind of the things I was mulling over for the past couple of days. There were some things that actually got addressed, and I decided not to really include that in this video. It's something like the shop. Like I hate the shop. I hate the shop. I feel like it ruined kind of the looting aspect of this game compared to Vermintide. I know Vermintide was a huge RNG grab as well, but the shop is something different. They really addressed my concern by just letting you craft items. So I decided not to include it here, but let's say we didn't get a crafting feature. I had plenty to say about that. In terms of do I recommend Darktide? It's $40. It's 40 freedom units. Personally, I do recommend it. I think it's a good game. This is me coming from Vermintide, so there's a little bit of there's a little bit of tenure there. I've been kind of committed to this kind of Tide game series and overall these horde shooters in general for quite a couple of years, from Payday to Payday 2 to Left 4 Dead, Vermintide, and now we're in Darktide. I think there's a lot to love about this game. If you're getting into Warhammer, I think that this is a good place to start as well, because I mean there's a lot of people that are willing to kind of tell you about certain things of the lore, and it's just kind of cool. Like the whole, you build your character from the ground up. It has their own lore, or rather you have your own lore. You have your own place that you came from, and this kind of goes into the gameplay itself, where a certain person being from this certain area is going to have something to say about this person being from this area, or their occupation, or what have you. I think that's really cool, and I wish more games kind of explored that, especially RPGs. I think this game is going to be really good, and I think that it's going to be in a good state tomorrow. There's going to be a few things that I'm going to kind of peek out for, especially these crashing issues. I know a lot of people were crashing during the beta. I was still crashing from literally yesterday. I had games where we were just about ready to extract, and you would crash just before extract, and you wouldn't get nothing. And it's not like you can blame the other players for extracting without you. I mean, what are they going to do? They don't know what your situation. Sad to see it. Hopefully it doesn't happen tomorrow. I hope for just a supreme launch. I know there's going to be a lot of newcomers, especially for people that didn't want to play the beta because they were worried about their progress being reset or what have you, but luckily enough, everything that we did from the past 2 weeks is going to carry over tomorrow. That's going to be good. Let me know what you guys think about the beta. What did you guys experience? Did you guys share some of my sentiments there? Were there some things that you were kind of concerned with about the beta? Especially, what did you like about the beta? That's really important, that you were having fun, with it. You don't want this to be another game where you constantly have negatives to say. That can't be fun. I didn't mean to ramble as well. Like I said, that this was just all off the cuff. So if you guys have anything for me, let me know down in the comments. I read every comment. For my newcomers to the game, like I said, we have our Zealot video coming out tomorrow, and as always, thank you for watching.